This story cuts deep through the reality of so many people not knowing when to draw the line, not having boundaries, particularly when it comes to parents interfering in their children's relationships. Stay tuned as you hit the subscribe button to support this channel. Please remember to turn on the notification bell for more inspiring stories from this channel. Thank you. The air was tense as Michael sat in the living room of his mother-in-law's house, sipping his coffee while pretending not to notice the sharp glances being thrown his way. Helen, his mother-in-law, had never made an effort to hide her disdain for him. From the moment he married her daughter, Sheila, Michael had endured her passive-aggressive comments and icy stares. But today, something felt different. Her hostility seemed sharper, almost deliberate. Michael works as a mechanical engineer in an automobile company. He is very intelligent, handsome, and humble, as those who knew him would say. Michael is hardworking and takes immense pride in his work, but he's also very family-oriented, devoting his weekends to quality time with his wife, Sheila, and their son, Jermaine. Despite his professional and personal integrity, Michael has faced subtle and overt racial prejudices throughout his life, including his interactions with Helen. Sheila, Michael's wife, on the other hand, is a schoolteacher who teaches middle school science. She's passionate about education and deeply empathetic toward her students, which often translates into her personal life. Sheila is diplomatic and tries to mediate conflict, even when her mother, Helen, displays overtly racist or controlling tendencies. She's torn between loyalty to her mother and her commitment to Michael, which creates internal conflict as she realizes the damage Helen is doing to their marriage. Sheila was in the kitchen, oblivious to the brewing storm. Michael focused on his coffee, hoping to avoid another confrontation. Helen, however, had other plans. "Michael," she began, her tone dripping with false sweetness, "don't you think it's time you stopped pretending you belong in this family?" Michael froze, but forced himself to remain calm. "I'm not sure what you mean, Helen." She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You know exactly what I mean. A man like you, married to my daughter? It's a joke." Before Michael could respond, Sheila entered the room with a tray of snacks. She sensed the tension immediately and shot her mother a warning glance. "Mom, can we not do this today?" Helen's face transformed into an innocent mask. "I was just making conversation, dear." Helen is a wealthy widow who inherited her late husband's substantial estate. She lives in an upscale suburban neighborhood, complete with a sprawling house and meticulously maintained gardens. Helen's wealth and status have amplified her sense of entitlement, and she often uses her money as a means to control or manipulate others. Despite her outwardly polite demeanor, Helen harbors deep-seated biases that come to light in her interactions with Michael. Her disdain for Michael is partly rooted in his race and partly in her inability to control him, especially after he rebuffs her inappropriate advances. Later that evening, Helen found a moment alone with Michael. Her demeanor changed entirely. Instead of the usual scorn, she seemed almost playful. "You're a handsome man, Michael," she said, stepping uncomfortably close. "Too handsome for Sheila, if you ask me." Michael's stomach turned. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Helen, but I'm committed to your daughter." Her expression darkened. "Oh, don't play coy with me. You think you're too good for me?" Michael stepped back, keeping his voice steady. "I think we should keep our relationship strictly respectful, for Sheila's sake." Helen's face twisted with anger. "You'll regret this," she hissed before storming out of the room. A few weeks later, during a family gathering, Helen's resentment boiled over. She accused Michael of being disrespectful and manipulative, painting herself as the victim. Her friends and extended family were shocked, and Sheila found herself torn between her husband and her mother. Michael and Sheila do not live with Helen. They have their own modest but comfortable home, which Michael personally renovated to reflect their style and needs. However, they regularly visit Helen from time to time, as she had always invited them over under the pretense of spending quality time with her grandson, Jermaine. In reality, Helen's motivations were far less pure. She intended to cause friction in their marriage by undermining Michael and attempting to assert dominance over their family dynamics. The breaking point came when Helen fabricated a story about Michael being abusive. Sheila and Michael are in their family house as usual, spending the weekend with Helen when she called the police, claiming he had attacked her. It was a beautiful afternoon. Sheila was in the gardens with Jameen while Michael was in their room as he went through some work documents on his laptop. Just as he raised his head, someone opened the door and quickly closed the door behind them. It was Helen. "Michael, you are here," she said softly. "Can you help me with something, please?" Before Michael could ask Helen what it was that she wanted help with, she pushed herself into Michael's arms and tried to kiss him. "Stop this!" Michael raised his voice. Just before another word from Michael, Helen raised her hand to slap him. Michael quickly held her hand in the air. "I am calling the cops right away," she said. During this visit was when Helen's inappropriate behavior toward Michael escalated. Her unwelcome advances, coupled with condescending remarks about his career and racial background, created a toxic environment. When Michael firmly rejected her, Helen's resentment turned to outright hostility. When officers arrived, Helen dramatically clutched her arm, pretending to be in pain. "He hit me," she sobbed, pointing at Michael. Because Michael rebuffed her advances, Helen fabricated a story, claiming Michael had been aggressive toward her. This led to her calling the police and falsely accusing Michael of assault. Michael was stunned. "I've done no such thing." Sheila stood frozen, her face pale. She didn't know what had transpired until the police arrived. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Protecting my family from him," Helen shouted. The officers, initially skeptical, asked Michael to step outside while they assessed the situation. Neighbors gathered, whispering and pointing. Inside, Sheila confronted her mother. "Mom, this is too far. Michael would never hurt anyone, and you know it." Helen's facade cracked. "He rejected me, Sheila. He humiliated me. I'm your mother, and you're taking his side?" Sheila's eyes filled with tears. "You lied to the police, Mom. You've been lying to everyone." Meanwhile, outside, Michael explained the situation to the officers. One of them, Officer Jenkins, seemed sympathetic and decided to investigate further. Upon interviewing Sheila and other family members, it became clear that Helen's accusations were baseless. The truth came out, and Helen was issued a stern warning for filing a false report. Sheila, caught between loyalty to her mother and love for Michael, struggled to address the tension. She initially dismissed some of Helen's comments as harmless but later realized the depth of her mother's animosity when Michael recounted Helen's inappropriate actions. Sheila, devastated by her mother's actions, decided to cut ties for the sake of her marriage. However, Helen apologized sincerely, so it seemed, to Sheila and Michael. Sheila forgives her mom but mentioned that they would stop visiting for a while to process all that is going on. Few months later, Michael and Sheila planned to celebrate their son's birthday, Jameen, as he was turning 3. One evening Helen called. "I'd like to discuss something with you, Sheila," she said. "What is that, Mom?" Sheila asked. "I want to celebrate my grandson's birthday in a unique way, and I'd like you to bring the celebration over to the family house," Helen requested, not expecting Sheila to turn it down. "Mom, I'll have to discuss that with Michael. You know, we were planning on having just a small gathering and nothing too elaborate," Sheila replied. "This is a family affair," Helen said as she started to sob softly, "and I want to celebrate my grandson's birthday." "Are you going to deprive your mother of this opportunity to celebrate her grandson?" she asked. "Mom, let me get back to you on this once I discuss with Michael, okay?" Michael was in the bedroom when Sheila received the call in the sitting room. She went to Michael and related to him all that she and Helen had discussed. Michael wasn't too comfortable with the idea. "Baby, we could do this in our own house, you know, right? We'll invite your mom to come over during the celebration." "I know, baby, but you know how pressing Mom can be. Please, let's just give her this opportunity." Michael agreed on the condition that Helen would stop being dramatic and not create any scene. Sheila informed her mom of the conditions with which they would bring Jamine's birthday party to the family house. Helen agreed. Jamine's birthday party was held at Grandma's house. At the family gathering to celebrate Jamine's birthday, Helen orchestrates a situation to humiliate Michael. She brings up past grievances in front of other family members, twisting events to paint Michael as disrespectful. Michael attempts to remain composed, but eventually leaves the gathering when Sheila fails to defend him, leaving her conflicted and embarrassed. Later, Sheila confronts her mother, but Helen denies any wrongdoing, claiming she's only trying to protect her daughter. Michael has a heartfelt conversation with his best friend, Derek, about the turmoil in his marriage and the difficulties of dealing with Helen. Derek encourages Michael to be transparent with Sheila about his feelings and his growing exhaustion. After that party, Michael wanted to clear his head. He decides to write Sheila a letter, laying bare his emotions and the toll her mother's actions have taken on him. He went home, packed a few clothes, and left the letter on the dining table. Sheila was broken when she read the letter. She loves her husband, but didn't want to hurt her mom since she doesn't have any man in her life since her father passed. Sheila secretly observes her mother at a coffee shop, where Helen meets a close friend. Sheila overhears Helen bragging about her plans to eventually drive Michael away, insisting that Sheila deserves someone better. Sheila is heartbroken and begins to see the full extent of her mother's manipulation. When Helen was informed that Michael had left the house, she unexpectedly visits Michael at his workplace under the guise of discussing a family matter. She corners him in his office, where she tries to apologize but subtly shifts blame, saying Michael misunderstood her intentions. Michael records the conversation on his phone without Helen realizing it, capturing her condescending tone and veiled insults. Michael returns home after a few days. Sheila and Michael attend a counseling session where they unpack the complexities of their relationship. The counselor advises Sheila to set firm boundaries with her mother and to prioritize her marriage. Sheila initially struggles with the idea but agrees to make an effort for Michael's sake. Helen escalates her behavior by filing a false complaint at Michael's workplace, alleging inappropriate conduct. Michael's employer conducts an investigation, but his colleagues rally to his defense, providing evidence of his exemplary character. When Sheila learns of her mother's actions, she confronts Helen in a heated argument that leaves Helen stunned and isolated. Sheila surprises Michael by organizing a vow renewal ceremony to reaffirm their love and commitment. She invites only those who have supported their relationship, excluding Helen. During her speech, Sheila publicly apologizes to Michael for not standing by him sooner and vows to always choose their family over external influences. In a twist, Helen receives a health scare that forces her to reevaluate her behavior. She reaches out to Michael and Sheila, seeking reconciliation. Michael agrees to a cautious truce for Sheila's sake, but makes it clear that he will no longer tolerate disrespect or manipulation. Helen's former friend, whom Sheila overheard at the coffee shop, reaches out to Sheila with an apology. She reveals that Helen's disdain for Michael stems from her own failed relationships after her husband passed and unacknowledged prejudices. Sheila shares this insight with Michael, and they agree to focus on healing their family. In the aftermath, Michael and Sheila focused on rebuilding their lives. They attended therapy to process the betrayal and emerged stronger as a couple. Helen, however, became increasingly isolated, her actions driving away even her closest friends. Though the ordeal was painful, it brought Michael and Sheila closer together. They learned the importance of trust, unity, and standing up for what's right, even when it means facing those you love most. Sheila and Michael moved to a new home further away from Helen, symbolizing a fresh start for their family. They host a housewarming party where Sheila gives a toast, thanking Michael for his patience, love, and strength. The couple looks forward to building a future free from Helen's toxic influence. In this story, we see that Helen's lies caused almost an arrest for Michael, but the truth came to light when Sheila confronted her mother and supported Michael's account. The whole ordeal forced Sheila to make a difficult decision. She distanced herself from her mother, choosing to prioritize her marriage and shield Jamine from Helen's toxic influence. The couple used the experience as a turning point to strengthen their relationship. They agreed to set boundaries with Helen and focus on building a supportive, prejudice-free environment for Jermaine. Helen, while still wealthy, became increasingly isolated as her actions alienated her family. Her attempts to reconcile were met with firm conditions that required genuine accountability, a step Helen struggled to take. Did Sheila make the right decision? Let us know. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to Home of Stories TV. And do not forget to turn on the notification bell for more inspiring stories. Drop your comments below, let us know your thoughts.